Hello everyone, I'm Megan Wood and I'm the Primary Music CTL, and I'm excited to record and share with you our second Primary Music Unit preview. If you have any questions that arise throughout this presentation, feel free to jot them down and email me after. So before we continue, I just want to remind everyone that this is a planning document, and I know it can be a little intimidating at first, but I want you to embrace this as a creative challenge and remind yourself that teaching stays exciting because we have the power to change and innovate each year. Also, don't feel discouraged or expect yourself to do everything perfect the first time around, because we do have the opportunity to reflect at the end of the unit and to edit as needed. So we are going to move on to the info box in box 1. So the info box is the box on the right, and that basically you're going to put the class, the school, the title, which would be music, the teachers, the date, the proposed duration, the number of hours, and the age group and school code. So box 1. Box 1, you'll notice all of the boxes are numbered up on the top left. So this is basically what your purpose is of the unit. So here's your transdisciplinary theme and your central idea. Now you can see the transdisciplinary theme here is how we organize ourselves. There are 6 transdisciplinary themes taught each year throughout the K-5 PYP experience, but both the transdisciplinary themes and the descriptor are never changed. So that way the connections could be made each year. Now the central idea, however, is the idea that scholars will work on during this one school year for this unit, and it will change and develop by the planner. So we're going to take a deeper look to what we have here. So how we organize ourselves, an inquiry into the interconnectedness of human-made systems and communities, the structure and function of organizations, societal decision-making, economic activities, and their impact on humankind and the environment. That is a really big idea for primary. So each grade level, when they touch on this each year, they will pick a certain part of this to really study. So the bolded part is what they're going to study. So for 3rd grade this year, they're going to study societal decision making and the impact of humankind and the environment. So their central idea will change to this. So the central idea this year for the grade level is people create systems that allow them to organize their societies and their natural world. You may think, how does this relate to music? Well, I related it to music, but I'm still relating from music, and I'm constantly referring back to the grade level, their main theme. That way they're able to make an authentic connection. So people create systems that allow them to organize music into different structures or forms. That's our focus, but it is relating to how people organize society. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump to box 1B, and box 1B is your summative assessment. Now your summative assessment is basically the student's understanding of their central idea and the transdisciplinary theme, and it's your big project. So for my big project or my big assessment, scholars are going to create their own pieces or songs, and they're going to use quarter notes, eighth notes, quarters, rests, but they're going to decide what form they want to use for their song. And to make this a little easier, for 3rd grade, I'm going to provide a melody bank of measures for them to pick from, to compose from. Now, if you have high scholars, you can change it out. You can let them write their own. They can add lyrics to their melodies. But to keep it real simple, I'm going to provide a word bank for 3rd grade. Now, up underneath, you have the summative assessment checklist. I always make one of those out to make sure, and I always do a yes or no to see if the scholar really, their project, their assessment really shows their knowledge of the unit. And then over on the right, I have a scholar composition rubric checklist as well. So that is a list I actually show the scholars and that they use when they're doing their project. Now I want you to remember that the summative assessment actually is for assessing the central idea and the transdisciplinary theme rather than the content alone. So you may have a summative separately that assesses your TEKS, but this isn't what the planner is for. So box 2. Box 2 basically It contains your key concepts, your related concepts, and your lines of inquiry. You are going to use these. They're already pre-picked. Most campuses already have these pre-picked, and they're part of the PYP planner, so you can get them off there. So you're going to pick a few that relate to the subject. So pick a few that relate to you authentically. So by each concept that I picked, I went ahead and I put in parentheses how it relates to me in music and how I'm going to connect to it. So for function, I said, what is the function of the different forms? Perspective, what role does the audience play? Responsibility, what is the responsibility of the composer? The same thing goes for the related concepts, the choice. What choices are the composers making? Law, what are the rules of theory? Governance, what governs these rules? Was this ever changed? What would happen if we didn't follow the laws of theory? So you're really going to just think how it relates to you in music. Also, there are several lines of inquiry, but you only need to pick a couple to make authentic connections with. How societies are formed and created. Well, how is music formed and created? And how people and their decisions change the natural world around them. How does a composer's decision with form change the outcome of a song or piece? And how do they know if they were successful? So that is the left side of the box. Now over on the right side is the teacher provocation that will drive this inquiry. So basically this is like your giant hook that you have at the beginning. So my provocation is here, the musical form, and I show this YouTube video. And then I have questions that I ask about the video, but these are driving questions that I do ask throughout the entire unit. So this just helps you kind of be thoughtful beforehand to kind of think about your driving questions, that you write them down and you use them each lessons, and then it will start to make sense for them. Now boxes 3 and 4 can be a little confusing. So I'm going to go through each box separately, and both boxes kind of have two different parts. So we're going to look at box 3. Box 3 is basically how do you assess the student's prior knowledge? So that's up at top. And then underneath is different formative assessments that you can do. So for assessing their prior knowledge, I'm going to have them listen to Twinkle Twinkle and Mary Had a Little Lamb and write down the form using the letters of the alphabet. We do form through all the different grade levels in different various ways, but this will just let me know where the scholars are at that moment. Next, different ways, formative assessments are right up underneath of there. So there are different formative assessments, that's where you're going to write those. Now box 4 is two parts as well. So box 4 talks about the different learning experiences, so you can see all the different activities I'm going to do in class. Now it gets a little gray here where you can take a look and say, well, I'm going to assess how they do at the end for these activities. Did they understand this activity? So I could see where it could get a little confusing where you think, well, this is an assessment too, and there is a gray area there. Now up underneath on the bottom, this is the second part of box 4, is where you put the transdisciplinary skills, learner profile, and the attitudes. So your campus might already have these picked out, or you might have the opportunity to pick them out yourself. And again, I just like to write my connections to each one of them and how I'm going to use them. Box 5 is basically, again, it's a double, there's two different things in box 5, but it basically is a resource box. So your resource box here, I'm just writing the nursery rhymes that I'm going to use. I'm writing down a DVD I'm going to use, the different genres, YouTube clips. Now the bottom of box 5 is how the classroom, local environment, or the community is going to be used to facilitate the inquiry. So after scholars are done their work, they're going to post them outside the music classroom, make sure there's no names and grades on them. They're going to post their work outside in the classroom, and other scholars in the school are going to come up and write down what they think their form is. So that's going to be mostly a 3rd through 5th grade activity, but it's a way to get other scholars involved in our activity and include the rest of the school. So boxes 6, 7, 8, and 9 are reflection boxes. And gives you time to go back and think how well you put the unit together and how it worked for your scholars. So 6 is to what extent did you achieve the purpose? And there are multiple, below you have several questions that you could go ahead and answer and fill in. Number 7 is to what extent did you include the elements of the PYP? Box 8 is what student-initiated inquiries arose from the learning and what student-initiated actions arose from the learning. So you're going to write down the questions that arose from the learning and then the actions. You could have a scholar bring in just an activity that they did at home, or they might have gotten really excited and decided to go home and write the form out for their song, their favorite song, or their mom's favorite song, and brought that in to share with the class. So that would be an action that you would write down there. Now, box 9 is one of my favorite boxes. This is the teacher notes. So this is where you can go back and really assess and think, hey, how well did this go? There have been lots of composition units that I've done, and they've really burned and crashed. And this is where I go back and I think, okay, what could I have done to really help and make this better? What could I have changed so the kids and the scholars really understood what was going on? And don't feel like you have to wait to the very end to go ahead and fill in your teacher notes. You can fill in your teacher notes after every class if you wanted to. Divide it by class 1, 2, 3. You could go after class 1, everything went well, but class 2, the scholars didn't understand the concept I was teaching. So next time I'm going to teach the concept this way. So with all of these, I want you just to keep all these things in mind, but remember that this is something that's pretty complex, but when you break it down, it's not too difficult. So again, if you have any questions, do feel free to email me, send something over, and I hope this was helpful.